My name's Sam, and this is one of the first few times I've been to Brisbane. So I've come here to visit Brisbane, and looking around, it's the first time any Asians been to Brisbane as well. Is that right? No, I lie. I use that joke in Tasmania, and it worked. All right. So as you see, I'm Asian, and what you need to know is most Asians cannot swim. Swimming is not big in the Asian culture, so when I went to primary school, I was the only kid in my class who could not swim, and which was a real problem because swimming lessons were compulsory in my primary school, and so once a week we had swimming lessons, and I could not swim. And the swimming teacher did not know what to do with me. Like, up until now, every student she had could swim, but then she had never had to teach someone who couldn't swim to swim. And so all she used to yell at me was, "Swim!" as if that would work. And I'd be waving my arms, crying for help, and she would just say, "Swim!" again, as if that would work. And I remember one lesson, I sunk, and I breathed in so much water, I just vomited my lunch back up into the pool. For the rest of the lesson, it was doing laps around the pool, scaring the other swimmers. But the lesson there is, if someone's drowning, you can't yell "swim" at them, because if they knew how to swim, they would be swimming. You don't just say "swim." And it's the same with us Christians and telling our friends about Jesus. Every time someone says to us, "You got to tell your friends about Jesus," that's like telling drowning people to swim. Like, we would be telling our friends about Jesus if we knew how to tell our friends about Jesus. So there's no point telling us, "You got to tell your friends about Jesus," because how? How do we do that? So what I'm going to do tonight, again, as Lee has said, there's going to be a 60-minute talk, and then there'll be time for question and answer from you guys for about 20 or 30 minutes. So that's how tonight's going to go. And in this next hour, I'm going to try to give you 6 tips on how to tell our friends about Jesus. I'm not saying they're perfect tips. I'm not saying they're silver bullet tips. Do this and everything will work. I'm not saying they're better than maybe what you're doing, but these are good tips that have worked for me, and maybe they'll work for you as well. So I'll write the first one up on the board, and the first one on the board is we need to get our friends to become their friends. Get our friends to become their friends. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, just imagine if I get up in front of you and say, "Hey, you won't believe what happened last night. My wife and I were watching TV, and suddenly this UFO landed in our backyard, and a little green man got out, and he told us to come into the UFO, so we did. And then he took us to the planet Jupiter. He showed us around. We had a meal with him. We got back in the UFO. And because of the whole space-time continuum thing, we went through a time portal, and only 1 second of Earth time went by, and we're back home last night." Who here believes me? Wow, in this room of 100 people, no one believes me. Let me tell you another story. 2,000 years ago, God sent us his son Jesus, 100% God, 100% human at the same time, born of a virgin. And when he was alive on earth, he raised a dead girl back to life. He himself died on a cross. And if you believe this, God will take away all the shame and guilt in your life. And Jesus didn't stay dead. 3 days later, he came back to life. And if you believe this, his spirit will actually live in you right now. And he's in heaven right now, and depending on which denomination you belong to, one day in the future, he'll come back and set up a physical kingdom here on earth. Now, who here believes me? Wow. So in this room of 100 people, almost everyone believes the Jesus story, but not the Jupiter story. Now, you've got to be thinking, why are you happy to believe the Jesus story, but not the Jupiter story? Because as I'm saying the Jesus story, even I'm not quite sure I believe it. And the Jupiter story is a lot more believable than the Jesus story. So why do we believe the Jesus story, but not the Jupiter story? Because of what philosophers call plausibility structures. I had to think about it. We have these pre-programmed, predetermined plausibility structures that prejudge what I say, and based on that you choose whether to believe me or not. So here's me telling my story to you. Here's you listening. And as I'm telling you the Jupiter story, your pre-programmed, predetermined plausibility structures are prejudging my Jupiter story and red flagging everything I'm saying. So when I say UFO landed in my backyard last night, your plausibility structure's going off. They're going bam, 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 red flag, red flag, red flag. Unbelievable, 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 implausible, implausible, implausible. And then we went to the planet Jupiter and we had a meal. Bah, bah, bah. You go red flag, red flag, red flag, implausible, implausible, implausible. And then we went through a space-time continuum and only 1 second of Earth time went by. You go bah, 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 bah. Unbelievable, 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 implausible. But as I'm telling you the Jesus story, your pre-programmed, predetermined plausibility structures are prejudging the Jesus story and going green lighting. So I say 2,000 years ago, God sent us his son Jesus, 100% God, 100% human at the same time. Your plausibility structures are going bling, bling, bling. Plausible, plausible, plausible. Born of a virgin. Bling, bling, bling. Plausible, plausible, plausible. Died and 3 days later, he rose again back to life. Bling, bling, bling. Plausible, plausible, plausible. Well, you think and go, wow, where do we get these plausibility structures from? Well, there are three main sources. Community. Our friends and family, people that we know and trust. Our own personal experiences. And finally, facts, evidence, and data. So right now, most of us do not belong in a community of people that we know and trust who believe in UFOs. Most of us here have not had a personal experience of UFOs. Most of us here do not believe there is any facts, evidence, or data to support my UFO story. But as I'm telling you the Jesus story, most of us here belong in a community of other friends and family, people that we know and trust who believe the Jesus story. Most of us here have had a personal experience of Jesus in our life. And most of us here believe there is enough facts, evidence, and data to prove my Jesus story. And out of all of these, like it or not, whether we think it's right or wrong, the one that's least determinative is facts, evidence, or data. And the one that's most determinative is community. See, we think it should be facts, evidence, and data that makes people believe things, but it's actually community. See, imagine if I said to you, the UFO is in my backyard in Sydney right now. Who wants to go down to Sydney and check it out? Anyone? No, I think about two hands. So the rest of you are just thinking, you know, I'm not even going to fall for that one. You know, even if the evidence is there, you're not going to check it out. And if you did come to Sydney and touch the UFO, you'd be going, nah, I'm not falling for this. There's some other explanation. In other words, we don't believe the evidence and we explain away the evidence. It's one that's least determinative whether we like it or not, and what makes a story believable or not. The one that's most powerful for making us believe a story, and again, I'm not talking about the truth status, I'm talking about the believability status of a story, is community. We behave according to our community. So we do what they do, we believe what they do, and we imagine what they imagine. So, a few years ago, my wife and I were expecting our second child, and parents play this game when it comes to naming their child. They don't want to name so common like Matthew, John, or David, but they don't want to name so weird and so quirky like Matthew with 3 T's and a silent Q. They want a name that's just right in the middle, not too common, not too weird, but something that shows, hey, look how edgy, trendy and cool we are, hey? Look at the name we gave our child. And so for our second child, we thought, hey, how about we call him Cooper? Hey, not common, not weird, Cooper. So that year when we named him Cooper, Cooper was a top 10 name in New South Wales. We just did what everyone around us was doing. We didn't know it, but we behaved according to our community. Now let's say, in this room, we're all Bible-believing Christians. Who here believes in public education? The government should pay for my school fees. Who believes in that? Wow, all the uni students, all the grown-ups, no, you know, they should pay for themselves. Who here believes in public health? The government should foot the doctor bills. Wow, you know, okay, but it's a majority belief. But if we went to America, Most Bible-believing Christians will be thinking, no. This is my money. This is my God-given money. It shouldn't support other lazy people who didn't work as hard as me. Who here believes that helmets should be mandatory on motorcyclists? Wow, majority opinion. Who here thinks we have a right to bear arms? As we came here tonight, we should have had a right to have a concealed weapon. Wow, no one. Who here thinks women should have a right to vote? Wow. Even the men, okay, yeah. But 100 years ago, no one believed that. So we believe, according to our community. And again, if I went to America in a church of Bible-believing Christians, they would think we had a right to bear arms. We should all be packing heat right now. And they'll be thinking, no, motorcyclists should not be wearing helmets. It's their head. They're free to do what they want with it. And besides, if they have an accident, at least I'm not paying for their healthcare fees. So we believe what our community believes. Now imagine if you came here tonight, and I told you the Jupiter story, and I'm the only one schmuck here who believes in the Jupiter story. It comes across as unbelievable to you guys. I'm not talking about the truth status, I'm talking about the believability status. Now, if you turn up tonight and I told you the Jupiter story, and this half of the room went, oh my gosh, me too. That happened to me last night. UFO landed in our backyard. I thought that was you I saw in Jupiter. Just wasn't sure. Didn't want to wave in case. Now, how do you guys in this half of the room feel? You suddenly think, oh, this is more believable. Imagine you turn up and you're the one and only schmuck who didn't believe in the UFO story, and everyone in the room said, me too, that happened to us last night. Now it's come across as really believable. Imagine if you live in regional Queensland and you run a youth fellowship, and on a Friday night like tonight, there's only 2 teenagers turning up for youth group. How do you think they feel in their town? Like the 2 schmucks in the whole town who believe in the Jesus story, and it comes across as unbelievable. And then once a year, take them to some big Christian worship convention where suddenly they're in a mosh pit with 2,000 other teenagers. Suddenly it's coming across as believable, because they suddenly think there are 2,000 other people just like us who believe this story. That's what Paul is saying, 1 Corinthians 15. Hey, I saw Jesus alive. Oh, and the other 12 saw him. Oh, and 500 other people saw him alive. Now it's coming across as believable. It was always true, hard to believe, but now it's believable because 500 other people still alive also believe this story. Now, what's the point? Normally as Christians, when we evangelize, we go solo. We make a resolution. You know what? This year I'm going to tell my friends about Jesus. I'm going to work up the courage, tell my friend at lunch about Jesus, or I'm going to somehow work out a way to invite them to an event. Well, the problem is we're going solo. Maybe we sign up for a book club, a tennis club, or a cooking club, and I'll be the Christian there who can tell this whole class about Jesus. But now we're the one schmuck in a class of 20 who believe in the Jesus story, and it might be true, it's just coming across as unbelievable. So what people are saying, not just me, is as Christians we need to merge our universes. Because as Christians typically we have 2 universes. We have the universe with our Christian friends and the universe with our non-Christian friends. So when our Christians go to the movies, we go with them. When our non-Christian friends go to the movies, we go with them. When our Christian friends have a barbecue, we go to the barbecue with our Christian friends. And when our non-Christian friends have a barbecue, we go with them. But where our universes are separate. But if we merge our universes so that our friends become their friends and we get more of a 50-50 split, suddenly the Jesus story becomes more believable. So I used to live in an apartment when I was working as a junior doctor, and it was hospital accommodation, and I was the one Christian and I had 3 non-Christian flatmates. But because I was living there, all my church friends used to come out over to the apartment and hang out, and they all became friends with my 3 non-Christian flatmates. So every time they went somewhere, they invited not just me, but my non-Christian flatmates along. And every time my non-Christian flatmates went somewhere and they invited me, I'd say, hey, can I bring some of my church friends along? And bit by bit, we merged our universes. And it takes 2 years for trusted friendships to form. But over 2 years, they became friends with my Christian friends. And after 2 years, all 3 gave their lives to Jesus, because we merged the universes. So we've got to be more imaginative on how we can merge our universes. So we have AFL on Saturdays. I have 3 boys. They all play AFL on a Saturday. And at the end of the year, we've worked out, some of the families are Christians, some of the families aren't Christians, let's have a barbecue back at our place and slowly merge the universes. And that's happening automatically because we have AFL to unite us, Saturday Sport to unite us, and we've already got 3 or 4 Christian families and 3 or 4 non-Christian families. And we're merging our universes. It means if you're sharing accommodation, maybe work harder getting non-Christian flatmates who can then meet your Christian friends when they come over and hang out, and bring them along to your Christian gatherings as well. And maybe it means if you have accommodation to let out, you'd actually think, hey, could I give this to a non-Christian tenant? Because the government actually pay for international students to live in people's houses now, and they'll pay the rent for you. All you got to do is offer internet and a meal a day or something, and now you can have a non-Christian living and merging into your Christian universe. So that's the first tip. We need to get our friends to become their friends and merge our universes. The second tip is this. We need to go to their things before they come to our things. We need to go to their things before they come to our things. I often get asked to give Christian talks, evangelistic talks, and there's one guy often invites me, and every time I turn up, he's surrounded by non-Christian friends that he's brought along, and they're always happy to be there, and they're always happy to talk to me afterwards. So I said to his wife, what's Andrew's story? How come every time I turn up at one of these things to give a Christian talk, he's got 4 or 5 non-Christian friends? They're different non-Christian friends every time. They're happy to be there. They're not like dragged there kicking and screaming. They're very happy to be there. How does he do it? Because most other people can't even bring any Christian, non-Christian friends along. And his wife said, oh, it's simple. We're always going to their things. So it's just natural they come to our things. It's just what we do all the time. See, if we go to their things, then it becomes a natural invite for them to come to our things. See, typically, we fire up the people at church. Oh, okay, we're going to have an evangelistic event. We're going to have a men's breakfast. Invite your non-Christian friends to this men's breakfast. And now you're thinking, oh, how do I invite my friends to this men's breakfast? And your non-Christian friends are thinking the same thing. Here he comes, you know. He's going to invite us to one of these breakfast things. See, when do men do breakfast together anyway? And now this is a Christian thing you're going to invite them to. But if you're always going to their things, they'll come to your things. And so we've been proactive, and maybe we can edit some of this out on the event. If that's what you promise. It never gets edited out, but promise. Yeah. So on our street, we've deliberately gone to everyone's things. So one neighbour, he's in a band, so we turn up to his gigs. Another neighbour, he coaches a soccer team, so we turn up to watch his games. Another neighbour was in go-kart racing, so we turn up to watch the go-kart racing. And then so when we invite them to our things, it's actually a very natural invite. We've been going to their things. It's just what we do, hang out together. So one Christmas Eve, on my street, a lot of people are Italian Catholics, so they go to Mass together on Christmas Eve. And so I said, hey, what are you guys doing for Christmas Eve? They said, we're going to Mass. And then I said, can I come? And they said, sure. So I went along with them to Christmas Eve Mass, and on the way home, they said to me, so what do you do for Christmas? And I said, funny you should ask. I'm usually the guy giving the talk. Would you like to come? And so for the next few years in a row, I was able to get like 10 of my neighbours to come to our church. And I'll always be sitting in the front row, because that's what, there's seats left for the newcomers, hey, the front row. And it was an easy invite. Again, if we go to their things, it's easy for them to come to our things. The third tip then is this. So you can start the recording again here if you edit it out.
I'll be on to it, mate.
Okay, sure. I call it the coffee, dinner, gospel sequence. So if you're in high school, you've got to think of something equivalent to coffee, dinner, gospel. We're always thinking, how do I tell my friends about Jesus? How do I tell my friends about Jesus? Well, think baby steps. Break it down to steps. Don't think about how do I tell my friends about Jesus. Think about how can I get them to go to coffee with me? Get them to a coffee invite first. Because coffee is a safe invite. It's public space. You're going to have just light conversation. You're going to talk about interesting things, and it's only going to be like 20 minutes. So it's a safe invite. And if you go to coffee, and coffee's not an easy invite either, we're so time stressed, but sooner or later you pull off a few coffee invitations, a few coffee dates, bit by bit you say, hey, let's do dinner. And then you get them to dinner, that becomes more of a private space conversation. You talk about deeper things like values and worldviews, and it's a 1 or 2 hour conversation. And bit by bit, conversations will start drifting towards the gospel. See, conversations typically have 3 layers. I learnt this from Peter Ritchie from Fighting Words. You usually talk about interests, and then values, and then worldviews. So you begin with interests. What did you do on the weekend? Boy, how hot has it been lately? What books are you reading? And bit by bit you get to values. So you know, what do you think you're going to do for education? You're going to send your kids to a private school, public school? What do you think of this? Do you like rom-coms over James Bond? That's values as well. And then bit by bit you come to worldviews. What are your views on religion, reality, life after death, spirituality? Are you going to send your kids to Sunday school? Do you pray? That sort of thing. And so bit by bit people will invite you in. And I remember Chaplain saying it's all about listening. It's all about listening. People give you a cue that they feel safe enough for you to enter the next layer. And they usually give you 1 chance, maybe 2 chances, maybe a 3rd chance. And if you miss the 3rd chance, then they retreat back out to the outer layer. And I remember one time talking to a guy, and he dropped 3 hints that his mother had died that year. And I remember I missed it each time. I think, he was wanting to pull me in one layer deeper. From interest to values and maybe into worldviews, and I miss that. So it's actually all about listening and making them feel safe enough that they invite you to the next layer. See, what's interesting is this. What's the method behind the madness? What's going on here? Well, for those of you who have studied a little bit of Western philosophy, you know in the 1600s, in the West we had a movement called the Enlightenment, where Immanuel Kant, a German philosopher, divided everything that we know into 2 realms. There was what he called the noumenal and then the phenomenal. So the noumenal is everything that we know about God, values and ethics. And then in the phenomenal realm is everything that we know about facts, evidence, data, things that we can see, touch and feel. Now Kant is saying, not that this world doesn't exist, but we just have no access to it. We can't verify it, we can't prove any of the statements here. But these things we can prove. So what are we talking about here? There's a God, there isn't a God. Values, chocolate is better than vanilla. How do you prove that statement? Rom-coms are better than James Bond. How do you prove that? Rugby league is better than rugby union. How do you prove that? Ethics, gambling is good. No, gambling is wrong. Abortion is right, no, abortion is not. Abortion is murder. So you end up with these things that you have arguments about because you can't prove your point to the other person. Whereas in this realm, you don't have arguments because we have access to the information. This is a world of the sky is blue, 1 + 1 = 2, and water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. And so what are we always taught not to talk about at dinner conversations? Religion and politics, because this is this world. You're going to cause a fight. You're going to disagree because one of you is going to say there's a God, the other one's going to say no there isn't. One of you is going to say rugby league is better than rugby union. No it's not. One of you is going to say gambling is right. No it's not. You're going to end up with fights. But you don't end up with fights in this world. The sky is blue. No it's not. Boy it's been hot lately. No it hasn't been. What did you do on the weekend? I had a picnic. No, you didn't. So this is really safe. You don't disagree here. Now, so what's ended up in Australia and the Western world is this is a very Western phenomenon. We've actually ended up with a de facto closed country where you're not allowed to talk about these things because this has now become the realm of the private. So it's all very well for you to believe what you want about God, but keep it to yourself in private. And this is the public realm. Science, the sky is blue, 1 + 1 = 2, water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. And so this is sacred space, and this is secular space. So God has no place in the secular space. So imagine if I said to you, hey, right now, all the main street, Ann Street in Brisbane is pumping, boom, 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 because it's a Friday night. How about we have an open air prayer meeting in Ann Street right now, and I'll pray to God out loud and mention the name Jesus as often as possible. Who wants to come to Ann Street with me right now? No one, because you can't do that. That's public space. Ann Street, you don't want to talk about Jesus in public. We can do this in a private space like a Bible college right now, but don't do that in a public space like Ann Street. Well, this is a Western hang-up, because the non-Western people don't have this hang-up. So if you go to an Asian grocery or an Asian restaurant, they always have a little temple or shrine in public space. If you catch a taxi with a Muslim driver, you can talk to them about Islam. They don't go, oh dude, don't talk to me about that, this is public space. You can go to a news agent and you can talk to the Asian news agent about Buddhism, and then they go, whoa, back off dude, you're violating my sacred divide. They don't do that. So it's a very Western phenomenon. So what's happening in the West is we have a de facto closed country. We have official closed countries where you can't talk about God in public, but we've actually inherited a de facto closed country. So we can fight against it, and maybe there's a time and place for that, but we can also work with it as well. And so just work with our culture to realise it's not just us who feel awkward about telling our friends about Jesus. They feel equally awkward about talking about Jesus as well, because you're violating the sacred secular divide. So the coffee dinner gospel is a way of inviting people into a private space. So when we do coffee, that's public space. That's a safe invite. You're going to be public. So they know you're only going to talk about the weather, the sky is blue, what it's doing on the weekend. But if you invite them into private space, like dinner or somewhere more private, just as private, bit by bit people will open up and they start talking about values, ethics, and even God in a safer space. And so we're gradually moving people in this private space. So what that means for me, on my street, there's this phenomenon on Friday afternoon, all the men on the front lawn watering the garden. It's this man thing. And you imagine the wife saying, why do you have to water the lawn now? I just have to, because it gets you out of dinner time and putting the kids to sleep and bath time. But you're out on the front lawn watering. Everyone's doing it by hand. We could set the sprinkler, but no, we're all doing it by hand. No, I can't trust that sprinkler. I've got to do it by hand. And suddenly we're all out there in public space. Front yards, because the front yard's public space. And then we all start talking to each other. And then the beers come out. Like someone will bring out a beer, and then suddenly we're having beers and we're watering the front lawn. And then later the wives come out and say, hey, what's going on? And then they bring out their bottles of wine. And so now there's wine and beer. And so this is like coffee. So we're in public space. And then we say, hey, since we're all together, let's have a barbecue or let's have pizza. So we invite them into our backyard, which is private space. And bit by bit, you have pizza, which is a safe invite because it's only a few dollars. You're not showing off. There's no washing up. They don't have to reciprocate with a big dinner. And bit by bit, you're spending more and more time in private space, and that's where the value and worldview conversations happen. Right now, my wife and I are in multiple universes, and we're trying to be as evangelistic as we can in these universes. So we have the swimming lesson universe on Monday afternoons. We have the Saturday sports universe, and we have the mother's playgroup universe. And the one that we found is working the best, well, this is how it's going. So the swimming lesson universe is hard because it's public space, it's loud, and after the lesson, everyone goes home. The AFL one is hard as well because everyone's on a sideline, they're watching a game, they're busy, and at the end of the game, everyone disappears. But the mother's playgroup one seems to be working really well because it begins with coffee at 10 a.m. And then when it's over, my wife says, hey, come back to my place for lunch. So now they're doing lunch at our place. And then my wife says, hey, let's have another coffee. So they have another coffee. When I come home from work at 5 p.m, they're still there. And then my wife says, hey, let's stay for dinner. And so bit by bit, they're spending more and more time in private space with us. And we've already had 2 or 3 mothers from that group join the local church. And I think we've had 1 or 2 baptisms from that. But it's taken like 1 or 2 years. But again, it takes 2 years to build a trusted friendship, merge universes. and slowly get them into private space. So that's a third tip, coffee, dinner, gospel. The fourth tip is this. The fourth tip is listen to their story. We're always worried about, well, what do I say? What do I say? Well, actually, we don't have to say anything. Get them talking first. Listen to their story. Often what happens to me is I'll be at a party, meeting people for the first time, and I'll say, hey, what do you do for work? And they say, I'm an engineer. And then they say, well, what do you do for work? And I say, I work for City Bible Forum and I tell people about Jesus. The music stops. And now we're awkward. And then, well, what has just happened? Well, what do you do for work? It's meant to be a safe question, isn't it? It's meant to keep you in the phenomenal public realm. I'm an engineer. No, you're not. No, I'm an engineer. I'm an engineer. What do you do? I tell people about Jesus from the Bible. You've just illegitimately dragged them into the noumenal way before they were ready for it. And now it's like a game of chicken. And we think, what do we do now? And you see who blinks first. And finally someone says, well, how about them Broncos, eh? Yeah, how about them Broncos? And we're back. Well, how blue is the sky right now? Yeah, the sky is so blue. Oh, phew. We're back down here in the realm of the phenomenal, where it's safe. But every now and then I like to, okay. I think, okay, we're in the noumenal way before we're ready for in the relationship. But I then give them permission to stay. I say, do you have a faith? So that's my line. And 3 out of 4 Australians, surveys still show 3 out of 4 Australians believe in a supernatural God and life after death. They're just afraid to talk about it. They're just as afraid as we are to talk about it because of that sacred secular divide. But 3 out of 4 Australians actually believe in a God and life after death. In younger people, it's 2 out of 3, but it's still a majority held view. And so by saying, do you have a faith, you're saying, hey, I'm making it safe for you to talk about something very close and dear to you. Now, they might be an atheist, and there's a chance they might be. But then at the same time, I say, hey, you're an atheist. Tell me about that. Tell me about that. Were you always an atheist? Tell me about the God you don't believe in. And then they might say, hey, listen, I grew up in an atheist family. I never believed in God. Not that it means there's no God, but at the age of 16, I had to make my mind up for myself. Now, they don't say that, but sometimes they might. But what I do is they say, so they say, hey, I'm a Buddhist. You go, wow, tell me about that. Tell me about that. How does that work? Because we don't know how that works. Whatever people believe is never what they write in the books. Were you always a Buddhist? How do you worship? What do you do in the temple? How do you pray? How do you want your children to grow up? Is your husband a Buddhist? He's not. Well, how does that work then? What are your plans for the future? How does that affect the way you treat money or work or family? So you get them talking as long as you can. And if you can, when you ask someone, hey, what did you do on the weekend? And if you can get them to talk for 1 minute, sooner or later, the polite thing for them is to say, what did you do on the weekend? And if you gave them 1 minute, they should give you 1 minute. If you gave them 10 minutes, they should give you 10 minutes. So if you say to someone, tell me about your faith, and you can get them talking as long as you can, and that's what you're trying to do, where they felt listened, understood, and empathised with. You're trying to feel what they're feeling, then they might do the same for you. Tell me about your faith. So over the last few years, I've started giving this talk in many locations. So there was one time I had to go down to Adelaide to give exactly this same talk, and it'd been a busy day. And what you've got to know is I'm actually an introvert. I'm a loud introvert. So I love being with people, but I've got to recover afterwards. I've got to prepare in quiet, dark spaces before an event like this. And so I had to catch this 4 p.m. flight that was going to land me in Adelaide at 6 p.m. and I was going to be in front of 200 people at 7 p.m. So I'm thinking, that's an introvert's nightmare because I've just had a busy day already. So I jump on the 4 p.m. plane And before I could get the earbuds in, which is the international symbol for do not talk to me, the man I was sitting next to says, why are you going to Adelaide? I think, oh no. And he's going, is it work or play? And I'm going, oh, it's work. And I threw it back at him before I had to talk about it more. And I go, well, why are you going to Adelaide, work or play? He's going, well, no, I've just finished giving a talk in Sydney and now I'm going back to Adelaide. And there's silence. I think, oh, he wants me to ask about what he did in Sydney. Okay, so what was your talk on in Sydney? He said it was on the physics of MRI scanners in radiology. And I thought, oh, I sat that exam 10 years ago. Now we have something in common. And then he goes, well, what's your talk on? I think, oh, I can't believe this is happening. I work with City Bible Forum. I'm about to tell people about Jesus. So there's silence. I think, oh, I'm about to give a talk on what to do when this happens. I'll be such a hypocrite if I don't do it. So I said, well, do you have a faith? And then he said, well, when I was young, I did. When I was a teenager, I went to the Christian church in South Africa, and that's when I found out it was a front for hate crimes against gay people. And then I went, wow, tell me about that. Did you always think that? How did you come to that? Tell me about your experience in South Africa. What was it like to be in a church in South Africa? Tell me about your journey. So I got him talking for the next 90 minutes. And all I did was I didn't interrupt. I kept trying to listen, understand, clarify, feel what he's feeling. Guys, it's everything you're taught in marriage courses. You know, don't talk back. Just say, from what I hear you saying, from what I understand you saying, that must make you feel this way. I remember my wife said, oh, if I ever catch you doing that to me, I'll be so angry. And so I said, oh, from what I listen to you say, from what I understand you saying, that must make you feel this way. So I did that for like 60 or 90 minutes. And finally there was a pause. And then, because I let him monologue for 60 or 90 minutes. I said, okay, from what I hear you saying, can I summarise what you've said to me? So I summarised it, and your main 3 objections against Christianity are 1, it's anti-gay, 2, it's anti-scientific, and 3, all religions are the same anyway. Is that what I hear you saying? He says, yep. And and you must be feeling this way. Is that right? He goes, yep. And then I said, would you like me to respond? And he said, yes. And because I let him monologue for 60 or 90 minutes, he let me monologue for the next 30 minutes until the plane landed. And then at the end, when it was all over, he shook my hand, and we swapped contact details, and he said, oh, thank you so much. You made that plane flight go so quickly. And I thought, oh, not for me, it didn't. So it's about actually listening to them so that they feel heard, understood, and empathised with. And maybe then they'll reciprocate. If you let them go for 1 minute, they'll let you go for 1 minute. If you let them go for 10 minutes, they'll give you 10 minutes. And now it's time for you to tell your story. And then now they will say, they usually say, how did you become a Christian? And that's when you say, well, I grew up in a Christian family, my parents were Christians, I've known Jesus all my life, not that makes me a Christian. No, that's not what you say. That is Christian jargon. Christians know what you're saying. It's actually Christian speak, but a non-Christian actually has no idea. They switched off the instant he said, I grew up in a Christian family. That's when they stopped listening. So we need to learn to tell our story as a story. I used to teach in a Bible college. And once a year, we always have these missions weeks where the Bible college students get to go to some church and do missions. And because you don't trust the Bible college student to do the main message, you always get them, hey, can you share a testimony? That's all they get to do, share a testimony. And I sit and listen to them, and they all sound exactly the same. So I thought, it's probably got to the point where if someone could get up and go, oh my gosh, I forgot my testimony. Can I borrow yours? And then they could just move this other person's out. And it would work just the same because we've actually taken out all the personal bits of our life. when we tell a story. So we need to learn to tell our story as a story. And there's a basic storytelling grid. It's called the Greek rule of threes. They've been doing it for the last 2,000, 3,000 years. Basically, everything just works better in threes. It's just the way we're wired as humans for communication. And so there's usually three parts to anything. There's an introduction, there's a body, there's a conclusion. The transition bits are just as important, so this is where you usually define the mission. There's a bridge moment where you sum up everything that's gone before you transition into the conclusion. And there's usually a final scene called the denouement. It's a French word. The new norm, the unveiling. So the original norm was down here. This is the new norm. And everyone uses the rule of threes. So Christian music, think how Christian music works. So next time you go worship on Sunday, verse 1, verse 2, that's the introduction, defines the mission now. Then he goes chorus, pull it back to a verse, another chorus, and just before he launches into the conclusion, there's a bridge, pull it back, bridge it, repeat once, repeat twice, repeat 3 times. If you're really game, 4 times, 5 times, and then chorus, chorus, chorus. So that's the conclusion. And then the worship leader prays. And that's a denouement. All right. Now think romantic comedies. How does romantic comedy work? You introduce the characters, boy meets girl, define the mission. Well, now they need to fall in love. Bit by bit, they become more and more in love. And the boy loses the girl at that moment. Bridge moments, the montage. He's saying, do I love her? Do I not love her? Do I not love her? Do I love her? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And then he does the make or break moment, swims an ocean, climbs a mountain, catches a train, and he gets the girl. And then usually there's a final scene where they're all very happy. That's a denouement. Sport movies, we begin by meeting the lovable losers at the start. Oh, there's a grand final they need to play in, a tournament. Oh, so they find some coach, some washed up has-been coach. And then bit by bit, they train. And suddenly this moment they doubt, oh, we're not good enough. No, training montage. They train. Now we are. And then ding, 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 the tournament starts and even hits a rule of threes. They're usually up, down. And then the last minute, yeah, they win. James Bond movies, there's a chase, all right, and then they catch the little bad guy. Oh, define the mission, there's a bigger bad guy out there, world domination, so bit by bit they get closer. Bridge moment, they get captured, so now they're in the evil lair, so the bad guy can monologue, that's the montage, and then they go to the conclusion where boom, you blow up everything. So it's a Hollywood resolution, all the loose threads are fixed up by an explosion, and then there's a denouement. Even the Bible uses this, all right? So in the Gospels, we meet Jesus here. He's born, then he's baptised by John, that defines the mission. Bit by bit, he journeys to Jerusalem. He gets into Jerusalem, and even Jesus has his montage moment. Do I want to do this? Do I not? That's the Garden of Gethsemane moment. Yes, I do. Father, not my will, but yours. Let's do this. And then he goes in, dies on the cross, rises, and there's a little denouement in there where he appears to his disciples. Mark doesn't have the denouement. That's why he feels unfinished, because we're lacking that last thing. All right, so when they ask, how did you become a Christian? You just got to think, I've got to have just 3 little bits in my story. Could be 3 sentences if they want the 1-minute version. Could be 3 paragraphs. It's the 5-minute version. But you got to say, who are you? Really, who are you? What drives you? What are your dreams? What are your ambitions? What is your happy ending that you're chasing? What must you have to be fulfilled in this life? So I remember doing this exercise with my Bible college students. This is the hardest bit. I had students staring at a blank page for an hour going, who am I? Who am I? We're not used to asking that question. Who am I? Who am I? And you can actually choose a different thing to go with depending on your audience. The Bible does that with Jesus as well. But look at how this would work for me. Who am I? Well, I'm Asian, I'm short, and I'm a high achiever. See, that's defined my mission. So my mission in life is to get into medicine. Not that my parents pressured me, but my dad was a doctor, my brother was a doctor, all my cousins were doctors. That was my mission in life. So bit by bit, I had to become a doctor. So I became that annoying kid in primary school who'd always stick up their hands and say, Miss, I finished my work, I need some more work. In high school, you get 99% in exams, and think, where did I lose that 1%? And then I got into medicine, and suddenly thinking, I'm not quite sure this is what I was after. And that's the whole thing with being a high achiever. Nothing actually ever satisfies that drive, because you need your trophies, and you need more trophies, and you remember your failures more than your successes. So here I might share some stories on my failures to make it personal. Now you bridge it. This is when you bring in Jesus at this moment. So you say something like, well, I grew up in a Christian family. So you bring it up here, you don't bring it back there. I grew up in a Christian family, and so I guess I knew about Jesus all my life. Yes, I knew about him dying for my sins. Yes, I knew I could be forgiven. Yes, I knew I could have eternal life in heaven. But I don't think I ever understood that Jesus was perfect, so I don't have to be perfect. But it was in high school, I remember our chaplain got us reading the Bible systematically, and that was for the first time I think I understood. Jesus is perfect, so I don't have to be perfect. And God loves me just the way I am. I don't have to prove myself to God. I don't have to win his love. I don't have to earn his approval. He loves me just the way I am, but he loves me too much to leave me the way I am. So now with Jesus, every day is a journey where bit by bit God makes me more and more like Jesus. So that's your conclusion. So this, then I could say how this had to become real for me when I decided whether to give up medicine to go into full-time ministry. Not that there's anything wrong with being a doctor and serving God, you can do that way, but for me the circumstances were leading, I can better serve Jesus in full-time ministry. Now, being a doctor was everything I wanted to do as an Asian high achiever, and bank managers want to talk to you, they want to give you their money, people at parties want to talk to you, they want to show you their rashes, but you're going to full-time ministry, bank managers do not want to talk to you, people at parties do not want to talk to you. Is this what I really want? I thought, well, I have Jesus. I don't need the approval of other people anymore. For the first time, I'm happy with who I am. Jesus is perfect, so I don't have to be perfect. So the denouement, show them what the new norm is like. So I catch up with my old doctor friends, and they say, I'm so different to the young doctor they used to know. They say, you don't drive like a jerk anymore. That's the first thing they notice. I didn't realise that by being a high achiever, it makes you drive like a jerk. And they say, you don't dominate the conversations at dinner parties like you used to either. Because being a high achiever, actually, you're very proud but very insecure at the same time. But now with Jesus, I can be humble and secure. So that's a 5-minute version. But you can see what I've done there. So that is what I would now say instead of, I grew up in a Christian family, knew Jesus for all my life, because I've lost you at that moment. But instead, you can share who you are, what drives you. So in my Bible college, one of my students, he was adopted. So he begins with saying, I'm adopted. So for my whole life, I've been looking for belonging. Yes, my adopted family loves me, but still, I don't have belonging. I don't know who my biological parents are. I don't have belonging. So he shares how bit by bit he always looked for belonging. Thought he'd find it at school each week at high school by doing what everyone around him was doing. Realised, no, it's not working. Then recalls the words of the school chaplain and realises, no, why do I need to look for belonging? I have God as a father who would adopt me. And then so at that moment he makes his decision and then he shares what his life is now like with God as his father. Another girl, she was a pastor's kid. So she's sitting at the page, blank page, she's going, I've been a Christian all my life. And for a whole hour, she can't write. And I said, well, who are you? Who are you? And then finally she thought, I know who I am. I'm a people pleaser. I'm a people pleaser. For my whole life, I've had to be a people pleaser because I'm a pastor's kid. Everyone's looking at me. I need their approval. I need to please them. I can't disappoint them. So she shows how bit by bit that worked in her life. And finally, with Jesus, how she only needs to worry about pleasing God. And she has God's approval with Jesus. So that's her story. So then we can learn to tell our story as story. And finally, number 6. Tell Jesus as a story. Now, so far, we've had their story, our story. So we've just got 2 stories. You've got your story, I've got my story. But I'm not saying this will happen and work each and every time, because it's much more organic than that. But if we can, we'll say, hey, listen, you've heard my story. Can I just share your story about Jesus that will really explain my story to you? And you just pick your favourite story about Jesus in the Bible and tell it to them. So just tell it organically as you would a normal story. Don't worry about memorising the Bible passage word for word. You're just giving a paraphrase, which any English translation is anyway. It's a paraphrase of the original Greek and Hebrew. So you're just giving a new English translation for them. And you just pick a story. So sometimes I like to go with the story of the woman washing Jesus' feet with her tears. Sometimes I like the story that Jesus told of the Pharisee and the tax collector. So you just pick your favourite story of Jesus to tell. And then afterwards, if you can, you just say, well, what do you think of that story? And then throw it back to them. Ask them safe questions where there are no wrong answers. Do you have any questions about the story? And see where that goes. And just to keep the conversation going. If you want to really get into this, you can check out Christine Dillon's book. I think it's called Storytelling the Gospel, and I've got a few chapters in there. You can also check out her website. I think just Google Christine Dillon and storytelling, and you'll find her website, and there'll be lots of resources there. And if you want, you can also sign up for Wycliffe Bible storytelling course. I've never done this, but apparently they can get quite prescriptive. You've got to do it this way, apparently. But, just learn their principles and just borrow whatever principles work for you. Because I think everyone has their own style. I don't think you have to do a particular style. All right, so I've shared with you 6 principles tonight on how we can tell our friends about Jesus. So number 1 was merge our universes, get our friends to become their friends. Number 2 was go to their things before they come to our things. Number 3, start working on the coffee, dinner, gospel thing, moving from public space to private space. Number 4, get them talking first, listen to their story. Number 5, if we get a chance, tell our story as a story. And number 6, learn to tell Jesus as a story. All right.
Good on you, Sam. Thanks very much. Now, thanks, Sam. Do we have any questions for Sam? We've got a little bit of time. What's the time now? You're on 56 minutes.
Sam, I'd like to hear your 3 responses on the plane.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're the ones that I get.
Yeah, sure. So I'll give you the first thing to do with answering questions is no one ever gets converted because you won the argument or won the debate. So I'm always trying to think, okay, I call it resonance, dissonance, gospel. So try to resonate with them. Why would they want their objection to be true? Why would they want Christianity to be anti-scientific? Why do they think that? So you've got to state their argument back at them stronger than their own words. So if they have to say, I believe Christianity is anti-science, they think, oh, I totally get it, because the Bible's got demons and miracles in it, and Jesus rising from the dead. We have to believe that. Well, now we're going to believe in unicorns and fairy godmothers. And that was the whole point of the scientific revolution of the 1600s, wasn't it? To free us from superstition and weird stuff like that. So then they go, yeah. So you got to dig the hole digger than what they dug you. Then you got to find something that they want to be true, and then show, but it won't work your way. Huh. But what if Jesus makes your way work? So an example one would be, there's so many ways you can go, but I'll just give you some quick ways. So if they say all religions are the same, so you say, yeah, I get it, I totally get that, because they've just got different cultural distinctives, but really they all pray, they all worship a god, they believe in life after death. Then I tell them the story about the elephant, the Indian story about the elephant, and all these blind men are feeling it. So one blind man feels a tail and says, this is a rope. One blind man feels a leg, says, this is a tree trunk. One blind man feels the trunk and says, this is a garden hose. But come on, you and I know it's an elephant. They're all just describing the same thing with their own different lenses. And we do the same. Buddhists, Hindus, Christians, Muslims, we're all actually describing the same God, just in our different ways. So, and then this way, everyone's right, no one goes to hell, it's tolerant, it's inclusive, and we'd all get along. But now we're actually saying something that they're not saying. And it's actually a very arrogant position, because in the Indian parable, we're not blind. So we're saying everyone else is blinded by their culture, but somehow we're not blind ourselves. So it comes across as humble, but it's a very proud position. And now we're actually trying to tell all the religions they're wrong. So we're trying to tell the Jew, hey, you're believing the same God the Muslims are. And they go, no, we're not. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. I know your religion better than you know it. Then now you're trying to tell the Muslims, hey, you're believing the same God the Christians are. They go, no, we're not. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You just don't know it. And then you're telling the Christians, hey, you're worshipping the same God the Buddhists are. They go, no, we're not. Yes, you are. So we're claiming to actually know their religion better than they know it themselves. So the whole problem is, as long as we're searching, we will never know. And we're just as blinded, because right now we're in a culture where we're saying all religions are the same. So even that statement is a product of our culture. We're just as blind, so we're all blind. But what if we've got the whole analogy wrong? It's not us searching, but God searching for us. And that's what Jesus claimed. I'm God, come to you. So we don't have to search anymore. So it all begins with Jesus come to us, rather than us trying to find our way to God. So that might be one way. Another way is saying, we all want everyone to be saved. We all want a tolerant, inclusive God. But even we would draw the line somewhere. So if I say, I'm God, I'll let everyone into heaven, you would say, really? Everyone? Pol Pot, the Bali bombers? Okay, only the good people. Really? Now you're exclusive. You're excluding the bad people. How good do I have to be to get into your heaven? Okay, let's not make it about good and bad. How about we just make it as long as you're a sincere believer in whatever God you believe in? And then you'll say, really? Sincere? How sincere do I have to be then? There's still a line. You're very exclusive. Okay, let's not make it about religion. As long as we're just true to ourselves, all right? We kept it real, we're authentic. And they go, really? You've just become exclusive. Now how authentic do I have to be to get into your heaven? Oh, so no matter how much we try, we're just as exclusive. We draw the line somewhere, either between good and bad, sincere, not sincere, true to yourself, not true to yourself. God is actually more inclusive than what we could ever be. Yeah, because his only criteria is, did you know Jesus? Doesn't matter how good, bad, sincere, authentic you were, just did you know Jesus? So Jesus tells a story about the wedding banquet where people say no, they don't want to come, and maybe that's what we focus on, the exclusive bit. But then God lets in people into the wedding that you and I were not invited to our wedding, and that's the point. The scandal of Jesus isn't that God is exclusive. He's more inclusive than what you and I would be. More people get in heaven under God than if we ran the universe. So that's one way to go. I'll quickly deal with the science one. I'll say, yeah, because then we'll be superstitious, believing in unicorns. So it actually all comes down to, well, what's a reasonable belief? What is a reasonable belief? Because we all believe certain things to be true. What is reasonable to believe? And actually, you'd be amazed how we actually end up believing things. So even science, hard science, we all believe we have a brain in our head, but none of us have seen our own brain. But we just take it for granted that what the doctors say must be true. And then someone will say, but I have an MRI of my brain. Yeah, do you know how an MRI machine works? Not even the doctors do either. Like somehow we just take for granted this thing is real. Then I often ask, do we believe water boils at 100 degrees Celsius? Or just out of interest, who here believes water boils 100 degrees Celsius, all things being equal, sea level, blah, blah, blah? So every hand should go up. Okay, who here has actually done the experiment where you saw it with your own eyes? It's maybe less than 20% in the room. So for the rest of us, we're just taking someone's word that this is what happens. And for those of you who did the experiment, it didn't boil at 100, did it? It never does. Did anyone actually have it boil at 100? It never does. So at that point you think, there's something wrong with my thermometer or water because it should have boiled at 100. Meaning now we're taking someone's word over what we see with our own eyes. And who here, and I explain, this can get tricky, I understand, but who here believes their mum and dad really are their mum and dads? Can you remember seeing the birth? No, so you didn't see it with your own eyes. Okay, have we done the DNA test? No. And why would we do the DNA test when trust breaks down? So we actually form beliefs based on trust. And so that's what the Bible's saying. Based on reasonable evidence, you're just going to have to trust the eyewitnesses on this, that this is true. But also explain that there's a category error with science. And John Lennox does this really, really well. So my wife bakes a birthday cake for my son because she loves my son. What caused the birthday cake? We have a physical explanation. It's a chemical reaction between the eggs, flour, butter and milk, okay, and sugar. But actually, there's a personal explanation as well. My wife baked the cake, and then there's a purpose explanation. Why? Because she loves my son. So actually, we have perfectly physical explanations for everything that happens in the universe, but that doesn't mean there's no personal explanation, a God who's making it happen using natural means, for a purpose explanation because he loves us. So they're not mutually exclusive. So I say it's the same category error if I said to you, I can prove that mangoes come from mango trees, therefore there's no God. You think, huh? How does that work? You know, I can prove to you that the GFC, financial crisis, was caused by an imbalance between supply and demand, therefore there's no God. Huh? How does that work? I can prove to you that rain comes from rain clouds, therefore there's no God. Huh? You suddenly realize these are two completely different categories, whether there's a God or not, and whether I can give you a physical, economic explanation for anything. These are two different categories. So it's the same non sequitur to say, I have a scientific explanation for everything, therefore there's no God, because they're actually two completely different. So I have a scientific explanation for how this birthday cake happened, therefore I have no wife. You know? So it's a category error. And then with the anti-gay thing, again we go, yes, I know. State the argument stronger than they can. So I said, well, it all comes down to what gives the right for anyone to tell anyone what to do. That's actually what the debate is. Because it's a debate of, you know, who gives you the right to tell me what to do in the privacy of my own home? Two people in love, mature, consenting adults, what gives you the right to tell me what to do? And they said, what gives the right for anyone to tell anyone what to do? That's actually the debate. And I said, right now, you've only got 3, maybe 4 choices. It's me, the individual. I have the right to choose what I want to do in my own life. And maybe that's where we've swung. But we've got to see actually how random and individualistic this is and how Western this belief is. It's a very Western belief. And we all make selfish choices. So how am I to know that this isn't another selfish choice? Okay, so maybe we'll say, okay, community determines what's right. It's a collective belief. And right now society tells us what's right or wrong. But then you say, no, every society gets it wrong. And as Timothy Keller says, every society 20 years later looks back and says, boy, we got that wrong. Yeah, well, whatever we think is right now, our grandchildren would think is wrong 30 years later. So that's a very transient thing. So then someone else looks at the animal kingdom and say, okay, for sex and morality, look at what's natural in the animal kingdom. Then we would say, but which bit of the animal kingdom is normative? So Christians love the penguins because they're nuclear family. Dad hangs around with the egg until it hatches. We're sure it will be like the penguins. But then we can say, why the penguins? Because I've owned dogs. Dogs are not serially faithful. They're serially unfaithful. So why can't we be like the dogs? But then someone say, why stop with the dogs? Why not be like the elephants where the male just wanders around raping women? Is that what we want? And then someone say, well, why not the black widow where the woman eats the man after sex? You know? So some of you guys, at some stage, we have to decide there is something that transcends the choice of the individual, society and the animal kingdom. So it all comes down to this. Do we believe there's a God who loves us, who made us, and he has the right to tell us what to do? And that's actually where you and I disagree right now, over whether there is someone, a God who loves us and made us. And he's going to say things that we don't agree with, but that's what a personal relationship is. My wife, because she loves me, because I love her, she will say things I don't agree with. But that's what happens in a loving relationship. And so if there's a God who loves us, sometimes we're going to have to say, okay, God, I don't understand you. This feels really wrong, but I'm just going to have to trust you on this one. And that's where our disagreement is right now. And I could give you a 30-minute answer as well, which I gave him, but I don't have time for that right now. That's right. Yes.
So if my friend is too arrogant to give me the time to speak, what should I do in that situation?
So the question was, if my friend's too arrogant to give me the time to speak, what should I do in that situation? Do you want to embellish? Give me more details.
For example, having a discussion about whether fact is more reliable than what you believe. As in, if I believe in something, does that make it real? Or see the facts. Does that make it real? And someone goes on and on and on. But then when you try and talk, they're like, no.
Yeah.
On and on and on. And on. Yeah, etc.
So the question was, you let them talk and talk, but when it's your turn to talk, don't let you talk. Well, it's one of those things where you've earned the right to speak, but they're not giving you the right to speak, so they're not treating you like a person, so it's actually very unloving for them. So you got to work out, okay, at which stage am I investing in this relationship, and which stage am I under-investing? So I think you can still enjoy the friendship as it is, a friendship, but if he's not giving you right to speak, I don't think you're going to win him over with an argument or words. But it's interesting, the Bible has this same situation with Christian wives married to non-Christian husbands. So in 1 Peter, it says, there comes a point where they know what you believe. They've probably heard you enough that they know. And so now you can actually try to win them over without words, so that they can see it in your life. And so what's interesting is the Greeks tell that there's always three components for message. There's logos, so the words we say. There's pathos, the emotions, how they feel, how we make them feel. And there's ethos, how we live our lives. So if they're not hearing the logos, then these two we can work on. And believe it or not, these are the two that make people believe more than the words we say. And so, when a used car salesman says, this car's only been driven by an old lady to church on Sundays, that's the logos. But right now, you're not feeling what he's saying, and the ethos isn't there either. You're not trusting that person. And so, as Christians, it's the other way around. So when Paul in the New Testament says, you know how we lived amongst you, and you know our lives. And also 1 Peter, when it says, always be prepared to give an answer, but with a clear conscience, in a gentle manner. So if your friend won't let you have the words, you can work on these two. So just what sort of friend you are, and if you can be trusted. And again, we're in this unofficial closed country. So in official closed countries, the way the missionaries work is you just got to lay the networks, and in a time of crisis, people will come to you. You actually become the de facto chaplain in this network of friends, because people know you're Christian, and they're watching you, and they'll actually come to you one day as their chaplain. So I'll just put a word out there. So Saturday sport, so I'm branching off to a bigger issue then. When I signed my kids up for Saturday sport 2 years ago, I thought it was going to be just dump and run. So I dropped them at training, dropped them on Saturday, and I could read a newspaper, have a coffee, come back and pick up my kid. But these days, Saturday sports is all encompassing. They put you on rosters, you got to run the barbecue, you got to run the sideline. Then what is going on? It wasn't like that when I was doing Saturday sport. But then a friend at work, he was mourning the fact that his kid was 18 now and leaving Saturday sport. He said, no, you got to embrace it while you can. You throw yourself in and you become the de facto chaplain in that team. People will actually come to you in times of crisis. So you've got to win their trust over first and then become the chaplain. So then I've had this paradigm shift for Saturday sport. I realised, okay, I'm going to turn up. I'm going to put myself on every roster that's out there. I said to the manager, if you want someone to do anything, come to me. The answer will be yes, just put me down. And people notice, and you win their trust. So they notice the ethos, you make them feel good, and one day they'll come, and you are the de facto chaplain, and one day you might have a chance to even have the logos, the conversation.
That works at work as well.
Right, yeah. Yeah, people notice, don't they? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes?
Have you ever talked to people who are like doubting their faith? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wait, so yeah, have you talked or like heard people speak about their doubts and what they feel?
Yeah. So it's a really good question. Have I ever talked to people about their doubts? So yes, all the time. So the key then, when people come to you for advice, here's the biggest thing, which women have worked out, but men have not worked out. When people come to you for advice, they're actually not after advice. they're wanting an empathetic ear. So they're wanting you to feel what they're feeling. So your job now is to listen as much as you can, understand what they're saying. So every now and then, again, it's marriage advice for you in the future. I hear what you're saying. From what I understand, this is what you're saying. So you summarise their words. That must make you feel and insert an emotion. All right? So it's paint by numbers. So you repeat their words, synthesize it, understand this. That must make you feel. Yes, an emotion, blank. And then, would you like to tell me more? So you get them talking as much as they can, and they feel, wow, that's amazing, because I doubted God, but he didn't feel threatened by that. So maybe it's okay to doubt and be a Christian at the same time. And then another thing we can do is say, that's amazing, because there's a person in the Bible who was just like you. And then you can show them John the Baptist, who doubted Jesus, Elijah on the mountain, who doubted, a psalm, any psalm, the psalmist eventually doubts God. God, what are you doing? In Revelation, the soul's under the altar. God, are you real? Like, how long is it going to go for? So there's so much doubt happening in the Bible. And if we ourselves are struggling with doubt, just Google this church, Pacific Crossroads. They put all their sermons on the net. And just recently, one guy I think about 6 months ago, maybe 12 months ago, has this thing on doubt. It's a really, really good sermon for us to listen to. And just say, yes, that's right. So in the end, it's not about evidence. It's, can I trust there's a God out there, and can I trust him? Because that's what it comes down to. Because in the end, that's what it's like in all of life. Can I trust that my parents really are my parents? Can I trust that my wife loves me? So right now I'm in Brisbane, she's in Sydney. Can I trust that she's really at home with the kids? Like, there's no amount of evidence that will prove that. So can I trust this person at their word? And that's what the Bible is saying as well. John is saying, hey, you're just going to have to trust us on this. We saw him, we touched him, we heard him. This is what he said to us. You're just going to have to trust us on this. And so can we trust that there's a God, and can we trust him at his word in the Bible? And yes, there's evidence, but always in life we're asked to trust beyond what evidence can give us. But that's just life. It's not unique to the Bible. It's life.
Well,
Sure.
That's about it. Thank you very much,
No
Sam.
worries.
Tonight was about sharing faith. How about I just finish tonight with prayer, and we'll head out and have something to eat. Lord God, we thank you for Sam's talk, and we think of our own lives and the future that we have of running into people who may not know you. And we ask that we could reflect on what we've heard tonight, that your Spirit would help us and guide us as we negotiate the pathways of engaging other people with our hope that we have in you. Thank you for this evening that we had so many people here. We pray that that would just be an encouragement to be with other people who love you. Amen. Well, you can make your way out. I better get the mood music going again. Any suggestions?
I think the speaker... Oh, you got the speaker? No. Your Bluetooth speaker got removed because we didn't know how to turn it off. Yeah, so I just need to edit out any bits where I share what I'm doing with like at AFL or with my neighbours.
I'll put it in my calendar for next week. We're done. How do we say that? I don't know how we say that. Thank you.
Hello.
I found that really good, because that's the same problem I've been grappling with, because I just went to a new school to Untitled High School, and that was a